Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Taking Advantage of Your Thrift Savings Plan. My name is Chris Fajola. I am joined by Victor Concha. We are both financial advisors with Kiva Wealth Management. We both hold the Chartered Federal Employee Benefit Consultant designation as well. And what this designation allows us to do is keep up with all your training with your pension systems, the Thrift Savings Plan, FEGLI, the federal health care, and we primarily focus on financial planning for those federal active and retired employees.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. It's Victor. Before we get going, I do want to say thank you to Karen from DHS and the Work Life program for putting this together for us. Appreciate it. In addition, we also received a lot of questions ahead of time for this presentation. I'm also going to ask you to put your questions down in the chat box. What we're going to do is we're going to send a frequently asked questionnaire document to all of the participants at the end of the presentation. So let's get going with a bit of history for GIBA. There we go. So we are a non-for-profit organization. Started back in 1957 by NSA employees. We offer a wide variety of insurance and different financial services to all the federal employees, retirees, any contractors. Now, we truly specialize in providing our members with customized solutions for themselves, for their families, in order to secure a financial future. We have close to 17,000 members, and we continue to grow. We initially started by primarily focusing on the intelligence community, and we recently moved on to being able to help out all of the federal employees. Here's a quick snapshot of all the different things that we can provide for our members. We are very competitive in pricing. I know that that's something that most of our clients look into as well. The strength of the providers, we work with really good, high-rated agencies. We are able to position very unique insurance and investment products for our members. What you're going to find within our team, there are a variety of experts here, from long-term care, investment advisors, insurance consultants. But what truly makes us unique as an organization is the fact that we're always looking for ways to give back to our members and our communities. So we provide scholarships for full-time students, up to $40 of $2,500. We are often able to sponsor family members. A lot of our existing clients want to be able to have their spouses or children take advantage of the different services that they are actually taking advantage of themselves. So sponsor family members, something huge. And again, the not-for-profit nature of GIBA, and for us to look for ways to give back, it's really what makes us a very unique place to work. Here is a quick example of all the insurance services that we can do for members and our clients. Dental, vision. You'll see here group long-term disability and group term life insurance. Long-term care has been one of the topics that we have had a lot of conversations on recently, just based on the longevity of our clients and the fact that healthcare expenses will continue to rise down the road. Chris and I work on the wealth management side. What we do is comprehensive financial planning for our clients, everything from investment planning to college savings, look at your individual accounts, retirement planning, tax efficiency. It's going to be a focus of our conversations. Social security analysis, and what would be the best way to leave behind a legacy to your family, whether it be your children, your spouse, any charity. So legacy plan is a big piece of our conversations with all of our members. And what I'm going to do now is let Chris kind of give you more of a market commentary.
Thank you, Victor. Okay, so we're going to start off with a little bit of market commentary here in the beginning. We're going to touch on a little bit at the end as well. But what we want to do is show you a few slides here, some stats. What we have here is what we call the perils of selling at the bottom of the market. And we all know that you should sell high, right, and buy low. But most of us, by human nature, when things start going south, we like to kind of run for the hills, go to the G fund because it's safe, but really that should present opportunity. And what we're showing here is going back to 2003 to 2020, we have the light blue line there is for someone that stayed invested through the various crises. We have one that moved to cash for 1 year and then got back into their portfolios and reinvested. And then we had those that moved to cash and never went back. And as you can see, if you were disciplined enough to stay the course, to weather the storm from the financial crisis of 2007, that you would have been rewarded. Here are the probabilities of long-term investing are on your side. And so if you were one to have a portfolio with an asset allocation of 60% stock, so that's your C, S, and I funds, and along with 40% bonds, a mixture of G and F, here are the various returns after a certain time period for the various financial crises over the last 30 some years. You know, we have the 1987 stock crash, 1989 U.S. savings and loan crises, the September of 1998, the long-term capital management's bailout, March of 2000, we all know about the dot-com bubble that bursted. We have the terrorist attacks of 2001. And then, of course, most recently in 2008, the banking and credit crisis. And we break it up, you know, the returns after 1 month, after 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. And what we're trying to show you here is, you know, you shouldn't have knee-jerk reactions to pull back. If you were strong enough to weather the storm, you would have been rewarded. Okay, so here is the risk of the stock market losses fall over time. What we're trying to drive home here is the longer you're invested. So for this, we're showing a 1 year, 5 year, and 15-year returns. Even with short-term losses, the overall long-term rate of return is basically always no negative. So for instance, looking at the bottom there, 15-year annualized rate of returns, it's 100% that you would have had positive rate of returns throughout that 15-year time span. And so again, you know, we tend to kind of zoom in on the present instead of zooming out to long term. And again, you know, financial planning, we're always looking at the long term approach and not short term. Timing the market is virtually impossible. What we're trying to show here is, you know, you can see the volume of trading on the bottom there. And, as you could assume, the 2008, 2009, that financial crisis, you had very, very low lows, and then you had very, very high highs. And it just shows you, you know, you would have been rewarded if you would have stayed the course. Over that time period, over the last 20 years, there would have been 5,035 trading days. If you would have stayed invested during all those trading days, you would have had just over a 6% rate of return. If you would have pulled out and maybe you missed out on the 10 best days, that return goes down to 2.4. And if you pulled out and missed the 20 best days, it goes down even further. And then if you missed the 30 best days, 40 best days, 50 best days out of that 5,035 days, it shows you that annualized, it's a negative annualized rate of return. So again, what we're trying to drive home here is it's very important to stay the course, follow the plan. For the markets are down, have a plan where you're taking that income. We also find that most federal employees, because of their pension benefits and along with Social Security, does allow you to be a little bit more aggressive than the average investor, and that should allow you to stay in the markets that much more. All right, we kind of talked about this human behavior. You have to recognize your bias. Are you somebody who gets scared? You're reading the media headlines and the sky's falling and you pull everything to G fund, or are you one that says, you know what, markets are down, I'm going to increase my contributions because I'm buying shares on sale? All right, so know yourself. There's a bullet point there. The second bullet point: people feel pain of loss much deeper than the pleasure of equivalent gain. I know that for last year when we're planning with our members, during that February and March period where the markets just dropped, I think I got more phone calls within a month period than I did over, say, a quarter. And then we ended the year up over 20%. So when things are going bad is really when we start getting emotional. You have to understand the markets when they go down. That's normal. Okay, it's normal market behavior. It's good to have corrections at times. Okay, and have a perspective. It's during crucial times like that. When the markets are down, tell yourself, I'm gonna increase that payroll allotment. Okay. Then we have our second topic there: with change comes opportunities, the big picture. Okay. So again, look at your plan. Don't be reactive, to what's going on. If the markets are down, again, increase those allotments. All right. Again, the saying is buy low, sell high. All right, so looking back to last year with the pandemic and how the market did go down, what did the Fed do to kind of to combat what was going on with the market decreasing so fast over that month and a half or so? One way, they were able to be pretty aggressive with the federal funds rate was reduced. So I'm sure a lot of you have refinanced your mortgage at the lower rates. That frees up more cash flow for you to put back out in the marketplace. The government was very aggressive in creating a stimulus, over $2 trillion in stimulus, hundreds of millions in state assistance. There was a delay in filing taxes. So all these actions were meant to kind of be proactive as far as getting the economy kickstarted again. Okay, these are all different things that the government can do to make that happen.
Thank you, Chris. So here's a quick overview of what we're going to be reviewing throughout this presentation. Really the importance of retirement planning, having an overview of your federal retirement benefits, look at the TSP, identify the different investments within it, distribution strategies, and then we're going to wrap it up with additional market commentary towards the end. One of the questions I like to ask a lot of our clients is, what does retirement look like for you? Right? This is an opportunity for you and your loved ones to be honest with yourselves and identify the things you want to do. Right? A lot of you have had pretty long careers with the government. Retirement might be 20, 25, perhaps even 30 years. So what is it that you want to do? Do you want to stay local? Do you want to move? Do you want to travel? Spend more time with family and friends? Be a snowbird? This is a chance to, put all of your goals, all of the dreams into paper, and have that built into your own financial plan. And that's something that Chris and I do day in and day out. So the different sources for your retirement savings, you're going to find pensions, There is the FIRST system. You also have the CSRS, Civil Service Retirement System. You're also going to have, based on whether you work outside of the federal government before or after, Social Security benefits that will come down the road. Your retirement savings strategies, it's a combination of TSPs, 401ks, 403bs, 457, IRAs, Roth IRAs, different annuities. And then you'll have a portion of your assets that are non-retirement investments, such as savings, your CDs, any taxable accounts, stocks, bonds, different mutual funds, different annuities that are not geared towards retirement. So those are non-qualified. So all of these components, most of our clients have exposure to each one of those categories. The main takeaway from this slide is, what is the strategy behind utilizing all of the different resources for retirement? What is your tax management strategy? What will be the most efficient way to leave assets behind to the next generation, knowing that we have all of these different components within your plan? A lot of the conversations that you're going to have with yourselves and with your loved ones, right, is the fact that one of you might be able to live longer than the other person. Typically, on average, women tend to live longer than men. So the planning, it's always going to be for a period of time, not for a point in time. We need to make sure that we are planning effectively based on longevity and ensure that we're not outliving the assets so you've been able to accumulate thus far. Again, planning for a period of time is often the best way and the most conservative way to do it. When Chris and I work with members, we often plan to age 95, perhaps even age 100. If it works for 95, it's going to work for age 87. That's what I always say. But really try to take a look at all the different things that you want to do in retirement, and we will put a plan together for you to ensure that for that period of time, you will be successful. So here's kind of a different way of looking at it, right? It's always going to be a time period within your planning strategy, right? You always want to be able to save about 10 or 15% every year in your retirement account, such as a TSP. If we're able to maximize those contributions, you can do that as well. And Chris will touch that here in a few slides. But keep in mind that during your early years in retirement, you might spend a little more money because you'll be more active. Towards your later years in life, you might slow down a bit. So, you're going to spend a lot of years in retirement, more than likely as many years as you did working. So truly planning for the long haul and taking into account all the different costs that go into the planning, especially with healthcare, it's going to be the best strategy for yourself. It's going to be the best strategy for our clients. This right here is a very important concept, which is the time value of money, and understanding what putting away assets towards your own retirement early on will do, and the impact it will have once you get to that point, right? So here's a quick example. If Dawn started investing $2,000 a year when she was 25, all the way to age 65, and then you have Dave, who started investing the same amount of dollars, $2,000 per year, but he started 10 years later at age 35, again, all the way to age 65. If you assume an investment return of 8% for the two of them, by the time they're both 65, Dawn is going to have substantially more assets in her retirement accounts than Dave did, simply by starting early and compounding the returns and the interest over a period of time will put her in a better situation. So the takeaway here is start early, put away as much as you can. And as much as you're comfortable with, you do that, you have a good allocation in place, you would be in good shape. The longevity statistics, there is going to be a higher likelihood of clients that are going to live past their mid 80s, early 90s. Again, this is something we take into account throughout the planning conversations, and it's important to plan for a period of time as opposed to a point in time. But really, make retirement your priority. You're not going to be able to borrow for retirement, so you're putting away assets now to pay yourself back down the road. You also want to take into account the time that you're going to be spent retiring, right? We're going to help you with ensuring that you're not going to run out of money, but keep in mind that the average retirement period of time is about 20 years, if not more. So here are some of the benefits as far as your federal government goes. The federal employee retirement system, or the FERS, right? The majority of members typically fall in this category. Anyone that was employed after December 31st, 1983. You have the Civil Service Retirement System, CSRS, anyone that was hired prior to 1984 and didn't choose to move into the FERS. And then you have a small portion that's the CSRF's offset. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this right here. It's primarily because there's not a lot of employees that fit in this category. You're either a FERS or a CSRS. And this slide will give you an idea of how the different benefits are actually calculated. For the FERS, FERS will be between 1% and 1.1 of your high 3 average salary for each year of service. People that fall in this category will be able to take advantage of Social Security benefits. It will also have your TSP. You'll have an automatic contribution that goes into it and a matching contribution as well. You do not have access to the voluntary contribution plan. You're also going to hear of the three-legged stool, right? Your pension plan as a first employee, your Social Security, and then your TSP component. As a CSRS, it's a little different. It's 16.25% for the first 10 years, and then 2% of your high 3 average afterwards. Social Security is a maybe. Perhaps you earned those credits before you started working for the federal government or after you left. The TSP is only supplemental, right? This is your own contributions. There wouldn't be any employer or matching contributions. But you do have access to a voluntary contribution plan where you can put up to 10% of your lifetime federal earnings. So here you go with the three-legged stool. Your pension, Social Security benefits, those are going to be fixed. There's not much control over those. It's going to depend on how much you earn during your working years and for how long you did that for. Your TSP is going to be a variable, right? This is the amount of assets that you would have contributed into your own retirement plan. And it all depends on how well you've managed that plan during the accumulation phase. So Chris is going to take it away and tell you more about the TSP.
Thank you. All right, this is why we're all here today, is to learn a little bit more about the TSP, take advantage of it. TSP is going to be your third component of your retirement. Okay. The purpose of the Thrift Savings Plan is it's a defined contribution retirement savings plan. So defined contribution means that the employee determines how much you put into the plan and how you want to invest it. Unlike a pension, it's a defined benefit. Right? The Thrift Savings Plan is going to be offered to all U.S. government employees, and it's one of the simplest and most efficient retirement plans to use today. Okay? One of the least inexpensive plans as well. All right, let's talk about some of the perks you get with TSP. There's an automatic enrollment for new employees. Okay, so effective on October 1st, 2020, it's an automatic 5% for new employees. Contributions are going to be made by payroll deduction. That's fairly easy. You're going to have a choice between a traditional or Roth contribution. So for those high income earners that are not eligible for a normal Roth IRA contribution, you will have that access to the Roth TSP. Options of different investment choices. There's 5 different funds to choose from, along with lifestyle funds. We'll go over those in a little bit. It's extremely low expense ratios. It's going to be very comparable to like a Vanguard or a Fidelity. And in FERS, employees will enjoy an automatic and matching contribution. All right, let's talk about how much can I put in the TSP, what's allowed. So for 2021, it stays the same as 2020. If you're under the age of 50, you can put up to $19,500. And then if you're age 50 or more, and you have to be at least age 50 by December 31st of this current year, you can put up to $26,000. Just keep in mind, the maximum is not a percentage, it's a dollar figure. Most people think that the maximum is 15% or what have you. Well, the percentage is going to be different for everybody. I mean, you can earn $50,000 a year and still max out your TSP at $19,500, and that's going to give a different percentage. All right, we're going to talk about items in each type of TSP. So let's start with the traditional TSP. These are going to be pre-tax contributions, and pre-tax meaning if you put $10,000 a year and you make $100,000, you're only taxed on $90,000. So if you're looking to take home as much as possible in your net paycheck, you're going to want to put more towards the traditional pre-tax contributions or traditional TSP. Just know that this will grow tax deferred and will be taxed at a later date at whatever tax bracket you are at the time of the withdrawal. All right. All matching contributions by your agency are deposited into the traditional TSP. This is regardless if you're 100% in the Roth TSP for your contributions. The agency's matching contributions will go into the traditional TSP side. Okay, the Roth TSP, there's no income eligibility. So remember what I said about if you're ineligible to make a Roth IRA contribution on the outside because of your income, there is no income eligibility requirements for the Roth TSP. So if you want to go 100% Roth and put that $19,500 per year, you can do that all on the Roth side. After-tax contributions, so that means that you're not lowering your taxable income. So if you make $100,000, you put $10,000 towards the Roth, you're still taxed on the $100,000. You're not reducing your income. Okay, but it will grow tax-free, and when you go to withdraw it in retirement, you will not be taxed on any of the Roth TSP account, not the growth or the contributions that you put in. It's totally tax-free. So you ask yourself, what do I do? What's the right percentage? And I get this question a lot during my financial planning appointments. Should I put all of it in traditional? Should I put all of it in Roth? And should I do a little bit of both? And we put together a few questions to ask yourself. Do you think you'll be in a higher tax bracket now compared to when you're retired? If you think so, go towards the traditional. Do you expect a higher tax bracket after retirement or during retirement? Invest in the Roth. Do you think the tax rates are going to rise? Okay, no one has a crystal ball, but if you think the tax rates are going to rise, invest in the Roth. Are you looking to reduce your adjusted gross income for other tax benefits? What I mean by that is, are you looking for certain tax credits where your income has to be below a certain amount? If that's the case, and the name of the game is lowering that income as much as possible, then you want to go towards the traditional side. Do you want to take home more money now? So what we meant by that is net paycheck. Take home more money now, invest towards the traditional. And if you're looking for a tax-free stream of income in retirement, the Roth TSP is the way to go, or a little bit of both. The TSP matching program for the FERS employees, if you don't do anything at all, the agency will do an automatic 1%. Now, this is different than that automatic enrollment of the 5%. That 5% is coming from your pay. But if you don't do anything at all, you don't make any contributions, the agency will do an automatic 1%. The next up to 3% is going to be dollar for dollar. And then percentages 4 to 5 will be a 50% match. It basically comes out to a 5% match. Okay. But you remember, that's during each pay period. So we talked about the maximum is $19,500 per year. We don't want to max that out too early. We're going to hit on that here in a second, because if you hit your maximum by, say, pay period 23, and you're not contributing anymore during the rest of the year, you're missing out on that matching. You have to make a payroll allotment in order to get the matching. All right, how much should you contribute? I know Victor and I, when we're doing our appointments, I kind of try to start with, say, 10%. Can you afford to do 10% of your pay? If you can, then up it to 10 to 11. If you can do more, do the 12. The main goal to strive for is $19,500. But if you're struggling to get to that amount, then at least the lowest that you should do is 5%, so you get that matching. All right. And then when you get raises or step increases, just tell yourself every time you receive a raise or a step increase, you're going to bump up the contribution by 1 or 2%. You can always lower it, but you want to find what that comfort level is. You don't want to contribute too much too early and lose out on that free match, like I mentioned before. Here's an example of how you can lose out on that free matching. So we have Sean and Susan. They both make $3,400 per pay period. Sean contributes a percentage of 25% per pay. Susan contributes $750 per pay. Sean only gets the 4% match when he contributes. So look at the column to the right. When he reaches pay period 24, he's already maxed out his annual contribution at $19,500. So TSP is going to cut him off and say you can't contribute anymore until the beginning of the next year. So every time he doesn't contribute, the agency is not going to match. So you're losing out on some free money there. So just make sure you spread your contributions throughout the year. Take $19,500, divide it by 26 pay periods, find out what that percentage should be, and then that's what you should be contributing. I mean, that's the maximum. Like we talked about, try to go for 10%. If you can't do 10, do at least 5. All right, what we're showing here is the importance of TSP. If we only had the top two legs there, the pension and the Social Security, the income comes out to about $65,000 a year. But if you add in a monthly income stream from TSP, that will increase it to over $100,000 a year. Okay, so that's just an importance of saving early, saving often, being invested in the right funds according to how long you're going to be contributing to the TSP, how far you are from retirement. All right, here is an example of a net paycheck. So the advantage of investing in the traditional TSP side. We have Roger and Regina. They're both month or biweekly paychecks of $3,400. We have Roger on the left. He's making a pre-tax contribution of that $680, and then you after that you subtract the federal income taxes. So his net pay is $2,221. Then we have Regina on the other side, who's making Roth TSP contributions of about $668.99 per. $680 biweekly, but also factoring the federal taxes as well. And you can see after taxes, it's almost about $170 difference per pay period. The difference between going 100% traditional or 100% Roth. Here's the advantage of investing in a Roth TSP, so tax-free retirement income. So we had the future value of those contributions that Roger was making. The $680 is now equivalent to $2,631 in the future. And then you subtract any type of federal income tax, it's the $386. and you come out with a net amount of $2,245.20. So that was investing just in the traditional side. Then you have Regina, who was making the Roth TSP contributions. Remember, she already paid taxes on those contributions in the beginning, and then her growth was growing, or the interest was growing tax-free. So the spendable income in retirement is not taxable at all. So that netted her a difference of roughly about, I don't know, 380 or so, per pay period. So it just shows you the difference between one or the other. And there's no right or wrong answer. I would say if you do your own taxes in a software to like TurboTax or TaxSlayer or one of those other softwares, you can go in and kind of play with, if you were to have a certain taxable income amount, lower it or raise it, is that going to prevent you from getting certain tax deductions or certain tax credits? And that will kind of help you get the right mix. All right, how do I change contributions? So most agencies have what's called a government retirement benefit system. I believe you can also go on the TSP website and do it as well. You can change the various percentages between Roth and traditional. You can also pull funds into the TSP by doing contribute to the TSP through a transfer or a rollover. So payroll contributions can only happen while you're working. You can only transfer taxable dollars into the TSP. So you cannot bring Roth IRAs into the Roth TSP while you're working. You can only bring in traditional IRAs or other 401ks or 403bs, other employer plans. You can bring those monies into the plan, but not the Roth money. You can make transfers into the TSP while working or in retirement. You must maintain $200 in the account to contribute. Okay. All right, now we're going to go through like what's under the hood, what's in the account, what's empowering our returns. Okay, what's driving the rate of returns of our portfolio, and then we're going to go over the various TSP investment options. What we have here is our financial pyramid, and what we're trying to show here is the relationship of the type of risk you're taking with each one of these funds and the return that each one of these funds are giving in return for that risk. So at the top, we have our I fund. That stands for international. That's going to be your most riskiest fund, but it's also going to more likely give you your most return. So, but again, you got to be willing to take the risk to get that high return. The second one's going to be the S fund, or what we call small cap. So those are small companies. That's going to be your second most aggressive. And then you have your C fund, which stands for common stock. For those of you that know the S&P 500 or Standard & Poor's 500 that you see on TV, that's going to mimic the C fund. Then you have your fixed income, which is your more conservative type options. You have the L income fund, and then you have the F fund. F stands for fixed income, or long-term corporate type bond funds. And then you have your G fund. This is going to be made up of government securities, the most safest conservative option within the TSP. The rate of returns historically have been anywhere between maybe 2.5% to 4%. Lately, it has not been returning that, maybe just less than 1%. And then, of course, we have our short-term type instruments in the form of a money market fund or a certificate of deposit that you would find at the bank or credit unions, and, of course, treasury bills. All right, so how do you know what to choose? Like, how do you mix all those funds together to create your portfolio? Here are some things to consider. You want to look at your risk tolerance. This is going to be your ability to kind of stomach the volatility that the markets see over time. Like, how did you feel last year during February and March when the bottom dropped out of the market and, the S&P 500 or the C fund went down 20, 30%. How did you react? What did you do? You want to look at your time horizon. How far out from retirement are you? If you're 20 years out, you should not be in the G fund. You need to be invested to get those returns you need to have a sound retirement. If you're 4 years out or 3 years out from retirement, you should not be 100% in the S fund. You need to be well diversified according to your time horizon and your risk tolerance. And keep in mind, there's no perfect asset mix. There's no silver bullet that's going to give you a guaranteed rate of return for 30 years or 1 year or 2 years. You just want to be well diversified and make sure you monitor the asset allocation, as we call it. In general, the riskier the investments, the higher the returns over a long period of time. But remember that slide that we looked at in the very beginning. The longer you hold your portfolio, the more positive those annual average returns will be. So in the short term, it may be very choppy, very volatile, some negative returns. But if you zoom out over 15, 20 years, your annual rate of return is going to be positive. And then just know when your portfolio is new, your investments are time horizons long, you can afford to take on risk. Like if there's a new employee who came to see me for a new hire briefing, and they're like, I need some help putting together a portfolio. I'm not going to retire for another 35 years. I'm definitely going to say we need a mixture of CS and I. There's no G and F, in this portfolio because of the time horizon. All right, when you look at risk, you have to understand everybody has their own risk level. I may have an employee in their mid-20s who is okay with a 2.5% rate of return because they just, they can't handle the ups and downs of the market. Reduce your overall volatility by diversifying your account. What we mean by that is, if you have all 5 funds as a mix in your portfolio, you're bringing down the overall level of risk than if you were just invested in just the C fund. A portfolio of 5 funds may give you a 10% rate of return, but a lower risk level, where the C fund may also give you a 10% rate of return, but a higher risk level. So the more asset classes or the more funds you have in the account, the lower your overall risk will be. Okay. The closer you're to retirement, the more conservative you should shift that asset mix to be more conservative. You should also rebalance your account by making what's called interfund transfers. So, for an example, if you believe that you should be 60% CS&I, 40% in G&F, just know that if a couple of those funds have great returns over the past year, that mix will kind of be out of balance. So you want to rebalance, and what you're doing, you're taking the gains off the funds that did well and purchasing the other funds that did bad, because everything is cyclical. One fund that does well this year doesn't necessarily mean it's going to do well next year. What did bad this year may do better next year. So again, you want to rebalance your portfolio at least annually. All right, so the G fund, we talked about this. This is a government securities investment fund. It's the objective is preservation, so it's very, very safe. Okay, in 2020, the rate of return was just under 1%. So you can see the 1 year rate of return 0.97, 10 years 2.04. We have been finding that this rate of return has been going down as of late. And again, I don't know whether you can expect that lifetime average return of 4.82 to be sustained over a long period of time. The F fund is going to be your fixed income indexment fund. This is going to be investing in government and corporate and mortgage-backed bonds. The objective is to match the performance of the Bloomberg Barclays U.S. Aggregate Bond Index. Okay, so it's more on the safer side, but a little bit more aggressive than your G fund. You would have noticed the F fund had a great returns last year, and part of that is because when the Fed lowered rates, the performance of a bond mutual fund will go up. So there has an inverse relationship with interest rates. When you see interest rates decrease, the performance on a bond mutual fund will go up, and vice versa. When rates start to increase, you'll see the performance of bond mutual funds go down. So if the Fed does start to hike rates or increase rates here in the near term, maybe in the next 2-3 years, that does not bode well for the performance of the F fund. We have our C fund, which we call our common stock index investment fund. This is going to be large and medium-sized U.S. domestic companies. It's going to mirror the S&P 500 index. Okay, so out of the 3 stock funds, this is going to be the least aggressive. Still aggressive, but the least aggressive out of all 3 stock funds. Pretty nice returns over its lifetime. The S fund is going to be the small cap stock index investment fund. So whenever you see small or like cap, that means capitalization. That means how large are the companies that they're placing inside these mutual funds. So if it's a small cap, that means that small companies are inside this mutual fund. Usually smaller the companies, more the risk, but higher the return. And you can see nice lifetime returns on this one as well. Should you have 100% S? No. You should have a little bit of S, but not 100%. Again, it's all about diversification. The I fund. This is going to be, so if you want some international exposure, this is going to have exposure to 22 developed countries, not emerging markets where it's undeveloped countries, but developed countries. Okay. And again, this is going to be one of your riskier stock options available in TSP. Again, should you have 100% I? No, but you should have some I fund in there in case the I fund is maybe like it has banner returns 1 year over another. All right, the L funds. We advise our members to have these quite a bit. One, it kind of puts it on autopilot to where there's not a lot of management involved. The L funds came in existence, let's see here, back in 2005. Okay, and recently they did offer 6 new funds that range anywhere between 2025 and 2065 in 5-year increments. Last June, the L 2020 fund became the L income fund. And really all it does is, they automatically give you an allocation of all 5 funds, but it shifts to be more conservative as you reach that certain year. And kind of rule of thumb is if you think you're going to be retiring in 2065, then you should probably go with the 2065 fund, because it's going to shift to be more conservative as you reach that year 2065. We talked about asset allocation. All this is having a little mix of all 5 funds, a mixture of stocks, bonds, cash. Okay. The more assets you can add to your portfolio, the lower your risk level is. Okay. Not necessarily your rate of return, but the overall risk of the portfolio.
All right. Thank you, Chris. So let's talk about withdrawals here for a bit. What are the options for our clients and what are your options right now? There's 2. There's in-service withdrawals and retirement withdrawals. So we'll take a look at each one of them. So for the in-service withdrawals, there's 2 different types. You have your financial hardship withdrawal or your age-based withdrawal. They both have to have a minimum of about $1,000. Money will not have to be paid back. However, any funds you take out are going to be subject to taxes and possible penalties if you are under 59 and a half. Now, you could take up to 4 withdrawals per year. But before we do that, we'll have a conversation to identify that this is, in fact, the best strategy for you. Now, your retirement withdrawals are going to be a little different. The amount will remain the same. It's $1,000 every 30 days. You have more flexibility here. You can have monthly installments, quarterly, or annual installments going directly to a bank account. Any assets that go into your bank account are going to be taxable. You have to take money out of your TSP when you reach the age of 72, which is often your required minimum distribution. You could also have a single payment go into your bank account, but again, keep in mind that that's going to be a taxable transaction. A direct transfer to an outside retirement vehicle is not going to be taxable. We'll touch on that here in a few other slides. You could also have a full or partial withdrawal as a life annuity. Now, this last section is the only one that's irrevocable. So before you do that, talk to your financial advisor, talk to people that can help you out and identify whether or not this is in your best interest to do. Because once you make the option, you can't go back. we have to look at TSP loans as well, right? If there's need for liquidity, where can we go and where can we access those funds? You can take out a loan. The minimum amount is going to be $1,000. You can repay yourself back through payroll deductions. They have lower interest rates than your typical bank account. There's no credit check. So again, identify if this is in your best interest to do. Talk to your advisor. Chris and I would help you figure out if this is the best vehicle for you to access the additional liquidity. Your requirement of distribution, as many of you probably have heard, the age is now 72. So if you're born after July 1st, 1949, you're going to be required to take money out at that point. If you do not, there's a hefty penalty for not doing so. If you're born prior to 1949, then you will continue on the same schedule that you have been to this point. But your RMD is going to be based on the balance on your account up to that point. So being able to diversify the assets and keep in mind your risk tolerance along with your time horizon, like Chris mentioned, is going to be key here. Now, there's three different ways you can take a look at transferring the assets or doing a rollover, and what is the difference between all three of them. Anytime you take money out as a withdrawal, right, you're going to pay taxes. Also, there might be a penalty based on your age. A rollover is a little different than a direct transfer, right? Rollover allows you the opportunity to essentially pay yourself back within 60 days, right? And a direct transfer is what we often do to avoid having a tax liability, and you can transfer the assets from one account to the other without those funds ever reaching your hands. So managing your TSP account, we'll take a look at your contributions, how to make changes, and your beneficiaries here. So your contributions, Chris mentioned rebalancing on an annual basis, right? You also want to take a look at how much money you're putting in and where the assets are going. If you have a pay raise, and there might be an opportunity to increase your contributions, and you can do so, go ahead and do that. Try to identify which is the best one for you, whether it's your traditional or your Roth TSP. Making changes to your TSP, it's very simple, right? You can go online, do it yourself. Again, look at your contribution allocation, look at the different funds that are available for you, look at the L funds. And the last one is very important, which is avoid chasing returns, right? Make adjustments based on your financial plan. Make the changes based on your risk tolerance and your time horizon. Know that market volatility is a normal event in the market. They're going to happen. So once you understand that going in, when you see that, it'll be a little easier for you to weather the storm. Again, volatility is going to be anticipated down the road. Chris and I will ensure that you have the right plan in place for your successful retirement. Sorry. Your beneficiaries, this is really, really important. Make sure that you update your beneficiaries anytime you have a major life event. Can't tell you how critical this step is. Once you update your beneficiaries, know that when you pass away, right, the TSP is not going to honor a will when you distribute the account. You can have primary beneficiaries and contingent bennies. This is estate planning 101. Very simple step, but it's one that a lot of our members often overlook. So please pay attention to it. Future of the TSP, right? We have heard that there's going to be additional conversations around adding the investments. And Chris brought this up in his remarks regarding the lower rate of return for the G fund. Here's some market commentary, and then we'll wrap it up. This is one of my favorite quotes from Warren Buffett. I'm not going to read it out to you guys, but the takeaway here is keep your emotions, right, from corroding the framework. Stay true to your strategy. Look at your goals. Look at your plan, and stay the course. Right. Retirement is a length of time, not a point in time. From an overall market performance, we're looking back to 2016. You can see the S&P 500, what it's done. You can also see here in January 2020, right, early last year, we had that dip in the market given the COVID-19 pandemic. ever since the market has rebounded quite well and is continuing to do that. Your FANG stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Alphabet, Google, you can see the performance and how they've gone up ever since 2016. A lot of our members have exposures to all the different companies you see here on the screen. Keeping your asset allocation in check and ensuring that you are well diversified, it's going to pay off over time. Developed markets, we kind of touched on this early when Chris brought it up. You want to have exposure to not only the US markets, but also international markets, whether it's developed and emerging markets. Now, you can see that their performance, again, from 2016 has done extremely well, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic, which is very recent from a lot of our conversations. The emerging markets sector has also rebounded quite nicely since we started the pandemic and the conversations around health of the world actually started happening. And the COVID-19 cases, this is going to be one of the drivers, right, that everyone is going to be paying attention towards. Cases are thankfully moving down. I know that there was a recent uptake not too long ago, but we're tracking the US cases, global cases. This will have an impact on the markets, will have an impact on performance of all of the different sectors. The big takeaway here is just stay true to your asset allocation, talk to your financial planner, and follow your plan. So Chris is going to take it away.
All right, thank you for sticking with us here. We're almost there, and what we'd like to kind of hammer home here is what should I do with my portfolios? So take time to make sure your financial position is secure. Remembers the rules of wealth attainment: save early, save often, the power of compound interest. Best returns historically have been recorded during rebounds from recessions. I think from the trough of the downward spiral last year to the height, I think the S&P returned like close to 60%. Don't sell out. Don't you want to buy low, sell high. Keep that mentality. Stay the course by averaging in. You're doing that by payroll allotments. Think long term and keep concentrated on your goals. Look at your financial plan quarterly or semi-annually or annually. And we're here to help. Here's all of our contact information. All of our financial advisors, again, are salaried. We have the designation of the Chartered Federal Employee Benefit Consultant designation. We use that training and knowledge in with our comprehensive financial plans with active and retired federal employees. So please utilize us. So here's our information. Here's some resources on the web. And again, like Victor said in the beginning, we will put together a frequently asked question document to give to all participants. So be on the lookout for that. And we appreciate your attendance today. Thank you.